lot of people believe that somehow asking for help is a sign of weakness. Now, any psychologist will tell you that asking for help is a sign of a healthy ego state. But in this case, we're asking for help to help others. It's like, who's next to be exposed to this important work? I believe my value is worth sharing. And here we're just, you believe in the value, your client is experiencing the value. Can we explore who else should at least be aware? Curiosity is a huge advantage here when we're getting to know our prospects and clients and curious about their lives, not just financially, but all aspects. Because first of all, we know that money intersects all aspects of one's life. There isn't a part of one's life that money is infused in some way. And so we become better advisors when we're curious, when we get to know our clients in an expanded way. People's money stories are broken. We get bad teachings or no teachings when we're young. I've done 100 money stories, 100. And one of the guys I was interviewing, his father, resented wealthy people. And so he grew up with that, resenting wealthy people. Now, luckily, he was able to overcome that, and he actually has done quite well for himself. But it's hard to become what you resent. Cognitive dissonance clicks in. The advisors that I've worked with that really do the best when it comes to referrals and introductions, they're kind of on a mission. Some will use that word, some won't. But their prospects and clients get that feeling that they truly believe in the work they're doing sincerely. And that's where this all has to come from. You're seeing the value, that's great. And you may not say these words, but it's almost like, who's next, right? Who's next to receive, to go through this process, or at least be exposed to this process? They should at least know about us. Because if we have a limiting belief or a mistaken belief, then we can't see the strategies and the tactics that are available to us to rectify the problem. And very few people will do this. So every now and then we need to reflect on that. And I just put that basic idea into our conversations, our stories around money. Clients that come into a practice through a referral, through an introduction, are 2.5 times more likely to provide an introduction to that advisor. So as you bring more and more people into your business, you're bringing people in who are more likely to refer or introduce you in the first place. And that's where that compounding effect takes over.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining the podcast today. Today we're discussing a topic that all financial advisors are interested in, getting more quality referrals that fit their ideal client criteria. And today we have on Bill Cates, the president of the Referral Coach International. And for 30 plus years, Bill's been helping financial advisors move from incremental growth to exponential growth by communicating compelling value propositions, enhancing client engagement, and just multiplying their best clients through personal introductions and building a really solid reputation in a well-defined and profitable target market. And Bill works with many Barron's top financial advisors that have raving reviews about his coaching. He's also a keynote speaker, a very well-published author as well, publishing Get More Referrals Now, Beyond Referrals, Radical Relevance, The Language of Referrals, which is one of my personal favorite books that I've actually read twice already. and his most recent book as well, Hidden Heist, which is going to be hitting stores really, really quickly. So Bill, I really appreciate you hopping on today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you bet, Corey. And just in case people, wondered when they saw this promoted, it's not Bill Gates. You didn't get Bill Gates on the show. I missed it by one letter and a few $1 billion, but who's counting?
No worries. Still helping plenty of people.
Yep.
I had to cut down your introduction quite a bit. You've done some pretty interesting things and had some pretty awesome travel out there, as well. So I couldn't fit it all.
It's all right. I get it. They don't care about that. They just want some good information, right?
Yeah, for sure. How did you get into the referral coaching space? That's just a really interesting space to kind of, fall into.
Yeah, so I was doing some training and speaking and consulting, but it was a little more generic, but it was all around client acquisition. I've always enjoyed identifying good prospects, kind of the hunt, if you will, a little bit, how to get their attention, how to bring them on. So the whole prospecting thing always fascinated me. And then I was listening, this was years ago, listening to some tapes. Some people remember when we had cassette tapes from this guy about referrals. And I was thinking, well, that's good, but I do it this way and I would teach it that way. And it just made me realize I really wanted to hone in on a subject expertise. And I came out with my first book, Unlimited Referrals, in 1996, believe it or not. And some things haven't changed. You still got to be referable. You still want to be appropriately proactive. Keyword: appropriately proactive. Um, and I've added a lot of things to it. So not just referrals or introductions from clients, but centers of influence and how we talk about our value. But I got inspired by someone else's work, and then I just dug in.
I love it. I love it. So in one of your books, it talks about, the referral process as, multiplying your best clients, and you kind of talk about it as compound interest, kind of, comparable to like savings and investments. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. It's so first of all, most people listening to this, they're not necessarily interested in quantity of new clients. They're interested in quality, right? So that's
100%.
well, quantity is a factor, of course, but it's quality. You want more of the right people, right fit clients, I like to call them. So how do we multiply those? And um, what I mean by compound interest is studies have shown that clients that come into a practice through a referral, through an introduction, are 2.5 times more likely to provide an introduction to that advisor. So as you bring more and more people into your business, you're bringing people in who are more likely to refer or introduce you in the first place. And that's where that compounding effect takes over. And then over time, it gets easier and easier because most of these folks met you that way. If you've built your business through internet leads or through anything else other than referrals or introductions, it's not that you can't build a referral based business and grow that way. You can. It's just not quite as easy. You haven't tapped into that snowball effect yet. And that's what I help people do is, tap into that ever growing exponential growth of a snowball.
That's awesome. And I mean, so the thing I really like about some of your coaching is there's kind of a, defined process here to help financial advisors get, to be able to get the referrals that they
Yep.
want. And everyone wants these type of referrals. Can you talk about, the process at a really high level?
Yeah, sure. So I always like to talk in terms of principles, strategies, and tactics, and we can talk about all three.
Sure.
So for principles, for instance, you've got to be referable. That's a principle, right? Another principle is you have to be appropriately proactive. So I've really put it into three main overarching strategies and that reflect the principles at hand. The first one is being referable, and that's client engagement. We have to have engaged clients, people who feel engaged with our value and engage with us personally. So look, if they appreciate your value, the things you teach, but they're not sure they like you, trust you, well, they're not going to become a client. They're not going to refer you. Or if they like you, trust you, but they're not sure they know your value, they're not going to become a client or refer you to others. So first step is how do we create this engaged relationship? And we can go a little deeper into that if you want.
Yeah.
The next step is leverage. How are we? I've mentioned this a couple of times. Become appropriately proactive, and there's two strategies. There's one is promoting or encouraging introductions, not just referrals, but introductions, getting connected, and the other is asking, and how to do it without looking like the three Disney characters with referrals. This is what I get when people call me for coaching. They don't want to look like creepy, sleazy, or cheesy when
Yeah.
it comes to asking for introductions. And so that's what we help them with. So leverage. How do we create engagement? Then we create leverage. And then finally is connection, introduction. As we all know, it's just harder to reach people these days. While word of mouth is nice and that occasionally might turn into someone reaching out to us, it usually isn't enough. We got to get connected. So please, when you're with a prospect or a client or a center of influence, use the word introduction or connection. Use the words that represent what you really want. But here's the neat thing. When you create this engagement, you become more referable. When you leverage, you're appropriately proactive. And then you get connected with this new prospect. And then you work that same process again with the new prospect of engagement, leverage. That's where you create this unlimited, continual flow of good quality prospects coming your way. And I know people, say, is that really true? Can you really create this perpetual flow? And the answer is yes. Engagement, leverage, and connection. So that's the basic system that I teach. And then wrapped around that, kind of drawing from my book, Radical Relevance, is how we talk about our value, how we communicate our value to ourselves, to our prospects, the clients, the centers of influence. Obviously, that's pretty fundamental, how we internalize and communicate our value. And that infiltrates all aspects of this referral process.
So can we just spend a couple minutes on each one of those
Yeah.
strategies? I mean, what do
Yeah.
you mean by engagement? You said in
Yep.
order to get referrals, you need to have engaged clients. What does that mean?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, and they feel good about your value and feel good about you as an individual. Okay. That's the essence. Well, what do we do? So I like to look at the client journey in three unequal parts. The first is the prospect experience, the courtship, if you will. Usually that's the shortest period of time where you're getting to know each other and creating mutual qualification. Is it a good match, right? Well, how are we adding value to this? How are we asking good questions, teaching a little bit, bringing the value? And then how are we building the personal connection? How are we really getting to know them in the bigger picture? Maybe even becoming a little bit self-revealing to create a little more trust. How do we create that personal, not in a manipulative way, just in a genuine way? And then the onboarding process, the first 90 days of the new relationship. How do we keep adding a little bit of value there? It could be invitation to educational opportunities. It could be reviewing their statement after the first or second month of working with us. Lots of ways. It could be a book that we wrote or someone else wrote, compliance friendly, of course, that we mail to the prospect or client. So how do we keep adding value? And then do we break bread? Do we invite them to a meal, or if geography doesn't permit that? Do we link with social media? Do we have other members of our practice reach out? How do we create that personal connection? I'll give you one example of a cool thing to do is find out what's on their bucket list, right? Just ask them, tell me about your bucket list. Well, let's get clear, help them get clear on their bucket list, or some people call it a dream list or a vision list. And then when you help them get clear on what that looks like, and then you reveal some of your bucket list items, and that business friendship grows a little bit. Create a great connection. That onboarding process, that first 90 days, you can become highly referable with a lot of engagement. And then how do we do this over time? How do we keep adding value? How do we keep building the business friendship? And I'll tell you that the secret sauce to creating advocates, people that really advocate for us, is that quote unquote business friendship, where the relationship really does go beyond the core work that we do. Not all clients want that, but most want at least a taste of that. And so that's what I mean by engagement and being referable. And here's the essence of being referable: value delivered, value recognized. When someone knows they have received the value that you've delivered, now you're becoming referable. Now you're earning the right to promote and ask for introductions.
Hey, breaking in real quick. I really hope you're enjoying this episode and finding my YouTube channel of value. If you're a high performing financial advisor that can use somebody as a guide or a resource to explore all your transition options out there in the marketplace, I'm a non-biased, independent transition consultant that can help make this process so much easier for you. And another plus, it costs absolutely nothing to work with me. If you want to have a conversation, please feel free to text, call, email, DM me. My contact information is all over this episode, and I'll let you get back to it. You mentioned in the engagement portion,
Yes,
there is the additional, like the kind of the courting process. I'm butchering your term. I'm sorry.
right.
There's the onboarding, and then there's the ongoing. Are there strategies to be able to extract referrals in all three of those stages?
Yes. So let's get back to that value delivered, value recognized. So we want to make sure before we are appropriately proactive, promoting, asking. Now we're kind of moving into the leverage part. So how do we know that value is delivered, value is recognized? Two main ways. First of all, we're paying attention to value recognizing statements. Prospects and clients say, thank you. Thank you for scheduling this meeting. We've been meaning to focus on our retirement or whatever. Uh, if someone decides to move forward with you, that's a value recognized, right? They're saying thank you. They give you a hug. They feel, I say, always feel better after we talk. All these value recognizing statements. So pay attention to those. Those are leverageable moments. We might just promote introductions. We might say, great, glad you see the value in what we're doing. Please don't keep me a secret out there, or I'm never too busy to see if I can be a resource for others. And in my book, The Language of Referrals, I teach about 11 different ways to be appropriately proactive in just the promoting side, not really asking. But then the other is to make sure that value is being recognized. And this is with the strategy I call the value discussion. I've been teaching this for 30 years. Just finished an article on this where I looked into some of the neuroscience around this. Now, note, I have to say, Corey, I didn't do neuroscience. I didn't do brain research. I looked into the brain research, important distinction. But here's something we all kind of know intuitively. If we're not clear about something and we grab a friend, a colleague, family member, somebody say, I got to talk this out, right? Let me just listen to it. I just got to talk this out, right? And you talk it out and you start to talk about what you think might be the solution before your friend even says anything. You've kind of already gotten clear on where you are and where you need to go. It happens a lot, right? Well, that's the dynamic that we want to create with our clients. So what we know, and based on backed up by neuroscience, is speaking something out, helping our clients speak out the value that they've been receiving from us, helps them get more clear on that value. And it starts to rewrite the neural pathways a little bit. And it also helps them figure out how they might talk about the value to others. And then we get in touch with that too. We see how what we do is landing. So we feel much more comfortable and confident going to the next step to, seeing if they might be open to introducing us to others. So this value discussion. All right, real quick on a tactical level, what does that sound like? Well, first, second meeting, exploratory, discovery kind of meeting could be, we covered a lot of things here today, Corey. I'm just curious what stands out as the most important? How would you prioritize what we discussed? Open-ended, very important that these are open-ended questions, because that's what gets that dynamic working of speaking out loud and getting clear. Someone decides to move forward with you, say, I think you made a good decision. We're looking forward to working with you. We'll start with the plan and then we'll go from there. I'm just curious. I know you had a lot of options, a lot of things we talked about. You were interviewing a couple other firms. I'm curious what tipped the scales, what made you decide to move forward. We're going to get them to think through this, reiterate, reinforce their feeling. We hear it, value delivered, value recognized. Now, important, we're not doing this to manipulate them. This is not a setup. This is not, have you found value in the work we're doing? Well, yeah, great. Who do you know? No, we genuinely care that we're providing great value and we want them to recognize that. And we might then plant the seed or actually ask for introduction. So that kind of how that works out tactically.
Once you prove to clients that you're providing that value, you are they're obviously, a raging fan. In the language of referrals, I know that you kind of you gave a bunch of different ways to kind of, ask for referrals. What does that conversation, potentially look like? I know there's a lot of different times in the process that it could happen. But I mean, what does that conversation potentially look like? Because I know a lot of people are wildly uncomfortable with asking for referrals.
Yeah, they are. A lot of it has to do with maybe how they've been taught in the past, the old methodologies. I still run into more tenured advisors who say they're recovering. They have PTSD from how they were taught to ask for referrals years ago. Let me tell you how I get paid. I get paid in two ways, or I'm trying to build my business. I can really use your help.
Yeah.
So here, first of all, here's one of the principles, and I love teaching principles, because when we know the principles, then we can kind of figure out what the strategy and tactics should be. But don't worry, I'm not going to leave you just with the principle. So the principle here is we've got to make this request for potential introductions about paying the value forward. It's got to be about the value. It's got to, first of all, you got to believe that your value is worth sharing. the advisors that I've worked with that really do the best when it comes to referrals and introductions, they're kind of on a mission. Some will use that word, some won't, but their prospects and clients get that feeling that they truly believe in the work they're doing sincerely. And that's where this all has to come from, right? You're seeing the value. That's great. It's almost, and you may not say these words, but it's almost like who's next, right? Who's next to receive and to go through this process, or at least be exposed to this process. We're not asking our clients to sell their friends or family members on working with us. We're just asking them to expose them to us. They should at least know about us and know about our process. So it has to come from that. It begins, I teach what I call the VIPS method very quickly. VIPS, the VIPs of your business, the referrals, the introductions. The V is the value discussion. We've already talked about that. It starts with that conversation around value delivered, value recognized. Treat it with importance. Why? Well, because it deserves to be treated with importance, and how you put it out there kind of determines how it comes back to you. So you want to be confident and treat it with importance. Permission to brainstorm or explore. This is not a setup. We're not pressuring anyone. We just want to chat a little bit about this. And then the S is suggest names and categories. And that's a pretty key part of this. The worst way to ask for introductions, and let me just say, better than nothing, perhaps, because lightning does strike occasionally, but the least effective way is to say, can you think of anyone else who should know about the work I do, or who else can benefit from the work? Again, better than nothing. Occasionally lightning strikes, but it usually fizzles. And everyone listening to this knows exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They say, well, let me give it some thought, or yeah, nobody comes to mind right now. So the bullseye in asking that S, suggest names and categories, is to come prepared, either with one or two or three specific people or couples that you know are in their life. Could be siblings, could be business partners, etc. And or categories, like maybe they came to you because they were selling a business. They know others selling a business, or cashing in on a piece of property that they sold, or changing jobs, or getting a promotion, or whatever the category that they were in when they came to you that got you on their radar, is a good one to start with, because they often know people like themselves. No pressure, just brainstorming. Got a couple ideas I want to run by you. And that is truly the most effective way to do this. And here's the deal. Some people are totally open to this. You'll get introductions. You'll work on getting a good introduction connection. Some people aren't ready for whatever reason. Some people are very private. It's not going to work every single time, but I'll tell you what it won't do. It'll never hurt a relationship. And I bet you everybody listening has had this experience where they've asked someone for introductions at some point. That person didn't have anybody at the time, didn't go any further. But then a month, 2 months, a year later, they come back and say, hey, I got somebody for you. Right?
Yeah.
So we know the worst thing that happens when you ask is it promotes the possibility for the future. It plants that seed.
So let's talk about that for a second, because I
Sure.
really like that in language of referrals.
Mm-hmm.
You had all of these misconceptions inside of the book when it comes around referrals. And honestly, inside of it, like 7 out of 9 of them were things that, I thought about. I've always asked for referrals. I've always, you know, gotten referrals, sometimes unsolicited, but like every time asking for a referral, I always felt like, I was being overly salesy, or maybe I sounded desperate, or, whatever it is. And I think a lot of financial advisors, feel this way. And inside of the book, I think you kind of changed my perspective on that a little bit,
Good.
and just helped me think about referrals in a different way. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it's the referral mindset I like to talk about in the book, The Language of Referrals. It's part one of the book, the inner language, right? Our own thoughts, language around the stories that we're telling ourselves, and we end up believing them, even if they're not true. So one of the big ones is asking for help is a sign of weakness. A lot of people believe that somehow asking for help is a sign of weakness. Now, any psychologist will tell you that asking for help is a sign of a healthy ego state. But in this case, it's not like we're begging. It's not like we're needy. We're asking for help to help others, right? It's like, who's next to be exposed to this important work? So again, it's got to go back to that. I believe my value is worth sharing. And here we're just, you believe in the value, your client is experiencing the value. Can we explore who else should at least be aware? So that's one of the big reframes. I'll tell you another one of the big reframes is having an expectation around this. Now, when I say that, I don't mean that you're going to say to prospects and clients, I expect you to introduce me to others. That would be pretty aggressive.
Yeah.
And don't subscribe to that. It's an internal attitude of expectation. I liken it to confident awareness. And here's what I mean. First of all, we're, again, confident in the value. We know there isn't, and probably hardly anybody on this planet, we couldn't sit down in front of them, ask a couple good questions, get them thinking, and be of value.
100%.
And then awareness, we pay attention. Curiosity is a huge advantage here when we're getting to know our prospects and clients, and curious about their lives, not just financially, but all aspects. Because first of all, we know that money intersects all aspects of one's life. There isn't a part of one's life that money is infused in some way. And so we become better advisors when we're curious, when we get to know our clients in an expanded way. So we look for ways to bring value, but we're also identifying other people in their life that at some point we can come back. So this ties into the mindset of the lifetime value of a client isn't just the business you can do with them over a lifetime, which can be substantial over time with some clients. It's also who they can introduce you to over a lifetime. But if that's not your thinking, your mindset, you might not look for the opportunity, right? And you might not see the opportunity that's right in front of you. Our beliefs shape what's possible for us. And if we have a limiting or mistaken belief, then certain strategies that are available to us just don't show up on our radar because we have a belief that shuts them down.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a crazy example of perception versus reality. I feel like in your mind, you say you ask for the referrals, the client gasps and says like, "How dare you?" And like, that's not that's never happened once ever. I mean,
No.
I had someone ask me for some referrals that did a couple suits for me the other day, and they provided massive value. They made something stressful super super easy. And I was more than happy to introduce them to other people. I feel like most people want to share that if the value truly is there. So I reading through your book just really helped me have a really big shift on that, which I
Very
really
nice.
appreciated.
Very nice.
So one other question that I have for you, before we dive into your new book,
Yes.
you talk about the difference between a referral and an introduction,
Yeah.
and kind of how to frame that. Can you
Yep.
can you talk about that? Because I feel like that's really impactful.
Yeah, I kind of foreshadowed that a minute ago. And by the way, that's what promoting referrals does. It foreshadows the opportunity. So yeah. So as we know, it's people don't answer their phones anymore. They don't know who we are. They won't even open an email if they're not sure who we are. It's just hard to reach people, right? There's so much noise out there, and so the way we cut through that noise, the way we look relevant to someone who doesn't know us, is an introduction from someone they do know. So the word referral for a lot of folks has a negative connotation. And a lot of advisors go, I don't like to ask for referrals. I don't know. I've had bad experiences, other clients. And so that's one reason we want to shift the word. And the other reason we want to shift the word is just it's so hard to get through. So, as I mentioned earlier, with a prospect client, center of influence, use the word introduction. And the important thing to think about here is the principles. The principles are the client or the referral source, the introducer, could be a center of influence, wants to protect the relationship, right? That's a principle. They want to protect their relationships. One of our principles is we want to get connected. Now, we respect their desire to protect the relationship, but we'd like to get connected. So what we need to do is talk about this introduction, this connection in a way that does both. And I liken it to when the Food and Drug Administration approves a drug for the market, it's looking for safe and effective. Well, that's what we want for introductions, safe and effective. They feel safe for the individuals. And if we're lucky, we get connected. So one thing I encourage whenever you're talking to prospects, clients, centers of influence about this, use the word comfortable next to the word introduction or in the same sentence, right? Let's talk about a comfortable way for you to introduce me to your sister and brother-in-law. Or let's see if we can come up with a way for you to introduce me to them that, that feels comfortable for you. And, if we're lucky, it piques their interest. So that's a big emphasis these days, is not just introduction, but comfortable introductions. And it tends to take the resistance down. They go, well, what do you mean by that? How would you do this? Uh, well, yeah, I'm sure she would like to hear from you before she hears from me. Let's talk about, a comfortable way for you to connect the two of us. And so that's what I mean. And, you've heard me throughout this interview say referrals/introductions. Yeah, I use the word referrals. The book is The Language of Referrals. I guess I could have called it The Language of Introductions, but then people wouldn't be quite sure what I meant by that.
Yeah.
So, use the word that's familiar and then teach what you really mean.
Oh, I love the idea of it and just thinking about it throughout the whole entire process because, getting a direct introduction to someone, whether in person or text or email or whatever it is, I feel like that's almost a 90% probability that things are going to go really, really well versus someone just giving you a name
Yep.
and reaching out and name dropping. I feel like the probability of you connecting or moving things forward is
Yeah.
just significantly less.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, this is awesome. I really appreciate you, hopping on and giving all of these, benefits about referrals. You've really helped me think through, a process
Hmm.
to think about this and just, repetitive over time. I know it's just going to be, something I don't even think about anymore once it's incorporated in my business. So the
Great.
step-by-step process has been ultra helpful. So thank you very much. Let's talk about that pile of cash in that book in the back right corner there. I've been
Yeah. For
thinking about
those
that the whole time.
listening and not seeing the video, there's a briefcase full of $1 million behind me. Resting nicely on that $1 million is my latest book called The Hidden Heist. And, what is the hidden heist? And every advisor understands this. It's the limiting beliefs, it's the mistaken assumptions, it's the unhelpful emotions that rob clients of their future self. um, every advisor sees the money stuff, head trash that people have around that. Advisors, we all humans, we have crazy head trash around money. So uh, my mission is I believe that everyone deserves to make educated financial decisions that are in their best interest. And for over 30 years, I've been helping financial advisors reach more people to make educated decisions that are in their best interest. And with my book, The Hidden Heist, which I'll hold up to the camera just for fun, the subtitle, by the way, is Stop Robbing Yourself of Lasting Wealth. And the subtitle is An Irresistible Tale of Financial Redemption. And so this is my effort to go directly to individuals around this, not to bypass advisors. In the book, we make a very strong case for working with the appropriate advisor for them. In fact, one of the key characters in the book is actually a financial advisor teaching some lessons. But we know the power of teaching through stories. And so that's why this is a parable book with my co-author, Jeff C. West. I'm kind of the straightforward guy. I'm kind of the guy teaching the mindsets and the principles and all of that. And Jeff is the guy who brought it to life through the characters. And I wanted this book to have a little edge. I wanted it to be an interesting story. Most parable books, you kind of know what's coming. It's just obvious what's ahead. It's still okay. And it's still a good book. But I wanted a little twist and turn. So Jeff did a great job with that. And so it's set in a bank robbery. And while the Bumbly robbers, a little bit of edge, but also humor, Bumbly robbers are figuring out with SWAT how to get out of this mess that they found themselves in. The hostages are in the vault and they're talking about money. And they're starting to write down these principles on the back of a pizza box with a Sharpie, the things that Alden Beckett, the key character, is teaching these folks. And then through that, these lessons around beliefs and mindset and some basic principles like compounding, which we touched on earlier, get revealed in the book. And then at the end, we got some appendices, kind of just in case the message isn't clear through the story. We got it in the appendices. This is my straightforward self coming through again. So it's a great book for advisors to give to clients to help them become aware of their mistaken and limiting thinking, or for some of their clients to give to their adult children. My personal trainer, Todd, I gave him a copy of the book, and between sessions, he read it. He says, "Can I get 3 more for my children?"
Yeah.
These are the lessons that either I didn't give them or they weren't listening when I did. So I'm going to give them to you in your book. So that's why I wrote The Hidden Heist. That's the essence behind the book.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of financial advisors know this, but I mean, I'm in finance. My college buddies and friends ask me questions all the time.
Yep.
It's really shocking the amount of, information that is essential information that some people, don't know still, or,
Oh yeah.
some of those limited things that you were talking about.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, no question. It's everybody's got it. I'm doing a TED talk on the topic later in October, and again, it's just it's. I kind of mentioned this earlier, but here's the principle behind the book and why I wrote the book is, if we have a situation in our life, whether it's our practice, trying to get more clients, whether it's a spouse, a partner, or whatever, and we're trying to rectify, we're trying to fix, we're trying to expand the opportunity, we've got to take a look at, what do we believe about the situation? What do we believe about ourselves? What do we believe about the other people? What do we believe about the context? Because if we have a limiting belief or a mistaken belief, then we can't see the strategies and the tactics that are available to us to rectify the problem. So and very few people will do this when they're trying to fix a problem. They won't say, all right, what am I believing about myself, about my wife, or my husband, my whatever, that's keeping me, right? What's the belief mechanism here? And so every now and then we need to reflect on that. And I just put that basic idea into our conversations, our stories around money. And people's money stories are broken. We get bad teachings or no teachings when we're young. I've done 100 money stories. I just hit a number 100. And one of the guys I was interviewing, his father, resented wealthy people. And so he grew up with that, resenting wealthy people. Now, luckily, he was able to overcome that, and he actually has done quite well for himself. But it's hard to become what you resent. Cognitive dissonance clicks in, and so that's where we go in this book, but in a very fun, interesting, twists and turn kind of story. Real quick, Corey, I just want to let you know we've put it on audio book. It's in Audible, and I'm recommending that to a lot of folks if you like to listen to books, because rather than me just reading the book like I did with my last 2 books, we hired a real professional book actor, like a Random House guy, right?
Yes.
To bring all the characters to life. And so it's a real compelling listen as well as a read. So The Hidden Heist, paperback, Kindle, hardcover, and Audible. Thanks.
I love it. I love it. When is it coming out?
September 16th. September 16th. It hits Amazon, hits the streets, so to speak. Just go to thehiddenheist.com, thehiddenheist.com. There's a little video trailer there. It's kind of a fun little 1-minute trailer, or you can just go to Amazon, look it up, either one.
So, Bill, for anyone that wants to, connect with you, get more information about your referral coaching, programs, the Hidden Heist, where do they contact you?
All right, I'm going to give you a couple, 3 websites, easy to remember. I'm sure you'll put them in the show notes. First one, referralcoach.com. Pretty easy, right? Referralcoach.com. That's the entryway into my world, and what we do for individuals and groups and organizations. At coachcates.com. Coachcates.com is for my coaching. And Cates Academy, CATES, catesacademy.com is our video on demand training academy. Some people do just on demand. Some people do it with coaching. Some people bring me in to speak to their groups. kind of do it all. I love it.
I love it. And you also have a very successful podcast as well, correct?
Topadvisorpodcast.com. Thank you. Topadvisorpodcast.com. Just recorded my 98th interview of the podcast. So going strong with that.
I love it. Bill, this was awesome. You gave some awesome information. Just from the one book I've read, you've already made a big impact on my practice. So I appreciate it very much.
You bet. My pleasure.
Have a great day.
You too.
See ya.